sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled roaring beasts wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now.
It's been a few weeks since a chaotic ending to the butt kicker Indy 250 saw Rodrigo Munoz win his first Lionheart race on the biggest stage of them all. Now, we make our way around the world. It's the 8th trip to Japan in the Lionheart Retro Series, but it's the very first time that the Lotus 79s aren't postmarked to Motegi, but instead head into the shadow of the mountain. Welcome to the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji, live on RaceSpotTV. Delighted to have your company once again as we make our way through the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, all by myself for today's event, but we're sure to see plenty of racing action, so don't forget you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing. Let's dive straight in towards what's going to be a thrilling butt kicker pre-race show as we wind through almost the entirety of the first half of the season. Yes, it is almost that time when drivers find themselves looking at the back half of the campaign and what lies ahead. Only 2 more weeks and three back-to-back races to contend with from Fuji. We will make our way to Iowa and then Phoenix, a week off, and then the second half of the campaign will begin in earnest. This is that Next Level Racing schedule, of course, running in towards 2024. 2 races to take place in January. Champion, as ever, is going to be crowned on January the 18th as we make our traditional trip to Auto Club for our season finale. Of course, this time it will be a little bit later than normal, but it is the Gomez Sim Industry Championship 250 presented by Next Level Racing. The penultimate round, similar to what the drivers have still to come with Iowa and Phoenix in terms of short course racing. The HyperX Gateway 150 going to be a thrilling penultimate ride with which the drivers have to set themselves up in terms of final championship stakes. Here's a look at the Next Level Racing driver standings, where it does continue to be a bit of a Sean Campbell breakaway at the front. However, can still tell it's going to be close between him, the likes of Michael O'Brien, Phil Krause, David Sirra, Mike Rasmuss, and Matt Taylor. O'Brien's been able to jump up into second spot, where he now leads the contingent of Nezumi Graphics LC cars. You've got 3 of the MadWorks specific Graphics LC machines in the field, 2 of the Unacceptable Racing cars. You're starting to see the strongest teams very much rise their way up into the top, and so when we take a look at the HyperX team standings, it's a somewhat similar situation. Nezumi Graphics LC 1 and 2, but interestingly, it strengthened numbers for Raven Lavoie with, of course, strong performances so far this season from David Suwa, Alex Guyon in the mix occasionally as well, and then backfire Unacceptable Team Talent and 40 Race Wear through the race of the top 7. Can see the margin already though building here. 1st through 8th, almost double the points that 8th has for Elite West Racing up to the ever-present and now almost leading that team championship for 18 months, Nezumi Graphics LC crew. It's Sean Campbell that leads the driver standings, and no surprise that he leads in the butt kicker rookie standings as well, but the margin here to Phil Krause starting to build a little bit more. Yes, those are the 2 strongest drivers. Christopher Hill, one to watch as well, but only 1 point separates him from Sam Fontaine. Dan Zagers still in 5th position, but now a little bit closer to Matt Wagner than I think he'd like, and then some separation to Jeff Hysong, Andrew Wood, Drew Wright, and Bruno Miranda, the rest of the top 10 in the Rookie Championship. Here's a look at the Gomez Sim Industry Series details at Season 7 of this Lionheart Retro Series, but it's the 10th year of the Lionheart Racing Series. It's the Lotus 79, a Grand Prix machine that we show is very capable of just turning left on some of our oval adventures, but never actually raced at Fuji, with this track not hosting losing the Formula 1 race the year that this car came out. So it's going to be interesting to see how we play a little bit of pretend, but also sim racing. It's an interesting dichotomy. Cash and prizes being fought over with a custom fixed setup, totting up to $3,600. Always exciting to see how drivers look to try and build a championship run, of course, and Triple Crowns 2 in the books now, with that butt kicker Indy 250 in the rearview mirror. Auto Club still to come, but a whole long ways away. Mike Razmas, the championship leader, or defending series champion, excuse me. It was always going to be a difficult championship to defend, and he's still in the mix at the very least, and that's all that he can really do. In the top 5 and keeping himself within a race victory, in effect, of those in front. Drop round still yet to play. It's the first time that we head to Fuji, of course, so there's not much to talk about in terms of event history. Instead, it's our arena track analysis. Head to the land of the rising sun. Once again, remember, it's the 7th time that we've come here, but it's the first time that we're not over at Motegi. This track has maybe the world's longest straight. It's not actually the world's longest straight, but it feels like that at times in this Lotus 79. I'm going to be curious to see how that all plays out in terms of draft, fuel mileage as well. Expected to come into play with the race distance totting up to 44 laps, 124 miles, and our fuel window going probably 24 laps. Tire management going to be a factor as well, with pit lane delta being 27 seconds. I pointed this out already earlier. This track dropped off the Formula 1 schedule before the Lotus 79 rolled out in competition in 1978, and so we're getting to see a little bit of history in some ways to see how this car is going to fare out. The drivers are out on track right now for the beginnings of a 10-minute qualifying session. It's time to thank all those that make this possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com to learn more. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. Gomez Sim Industries are makers of high-end esport equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. And graphics, from simple logos to full branding for your company. Virtual designs to liveries raced by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit graphicsesports.com to learn more. 10 minutes thrown onto the clock for the drivers, but 4 attempts around this fearsome facility up in the shadow of the Fuji Mountains. First times being set, and it's Mike Razmas, the defending champion, that immediately gets pipped by David Sira, who has a bit of a penchant for getting pole, but maybe somewhat struggles at times to be able to convert that into actual race victories. O'Brien has gone 2/10 quicker. Seems as though we are seeing that the first time by, maybe a little bit of a setup lap, and feeling out in terms of track conditions, if you're curious what they are. early morning on iRacing Day, 15th of May, with plenty of cloud cover, with 23 degrees Celsius air temperature, means 26 on the track itself. 18-kilometer-hour gusts of wind, so with these Lotus 79s being little pocket rockets in some ways, they do definitely have to keep just a bit of an eye out for that. Phil Kraus and Sean Campbell, no time on the board for the two of them if you're curious. Campbell burned his first lap, did not set a time. Phil Kraus has just finished his first lap. He's gone up into third position. Sam Ryman's gone to 15th. Next to the line is going to be Hugo Gallas. No draft for these drivers to contend with, remember. They get the track to themselves. 14th going to be the best that he can do. And Sam Fontaine. And a pretty close fight in that rookie championship. 27-4, 2 seconds off. There's Razmas in front of Kraus for a moment. David Sirot goes back to pole position, but how long will that last if the times just continue to tumble? Reagan's up to 5th. Remember, track conditions might be expected to rise slightly come the end. And O'Brien's not going to improve the next time by as Hill slides his way up to 3rd. Just Valenzuela, Fowler, and Forsyth yet to set times. But 20 drivers split by 2.7 seconds as it runs right now. Fowler's gone to 4th. A second covers the top 10 or so. Here's Forsyth in his distinctive colors for 2023. Not going to miss the 40 racewear car. Got to be so precise out of that final corner to be able to maximize the momentum. And I think Forsyth's going to very much punch in a banker lap time. Going to have to find some improvement from there. Phil Kraus finds some improvement to the outside of the front row. It's a pretty good lap time, all things considered. But I think now we wait for the final lap for Phil Kraus. Might back off and allow his tires to cool off. Gallus, no improvement for him. And so once again, seeing a bit of the swings and roundabout of the Lotus 79. Some drivers have confided to me that they expect to change all 4 tires. You can see Gabe Wood goes almost 4 seconds off the pace. Tyler Graf not off the pace by any means. Slides up to 6th, but very much now sets him up on his final attempt with tires that have already run a couple of laps. O'Brien goes to the top. Sean Campbell can't best him. He's only 2nd for the time being. Kraus is to 4th. And it's the Kiwi O'Brien, at least for the time being, has got that pole position. How crucial is pole position going to be? Well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. I'm of the opinion that very much it's the case that with the draft being so important as ever in this car, that we are likely to end up seeing other things play out in terms of mileage as well, with just a one-stop race expected. Here's Phil Kraus coming towards the line. Let's ride around for a lap at the Fuji Speedway. Again, long straight that runs you down in towards the opening corner, and Kraus has done a 25.474, the fastest of them all, to get himself underway for the final lap. Look how wide he sweeps through the opening corner, but now got to set yourself up on the left or right-hand side for a left-hand sweeper. How brave is he going to be? Not down through the gears, but straddling that curb and now in through 100R. Got to be so close to the right-hand side, down through the gear to just try and slow the momentum that little bit further, but then on to the brakes. Hard in through turn 6 at the hairpin. Watch this Kraus sweeps out wide, just trying to get on the power as aggressively as possible. O'Brien's been able to pip him 400s quicker. Now a crucial section though, in towards the heavy braking zone, where we do not have the chicane. Instead, we ride ourselves directly in towards the final sector, and it's a cresting entry as well. Track somewhat falls away from you in through turn 14, but in 15, it comes back towards you initially. Kraus slides the rears, cuts the inside of the penultimate corner, and now through Panasonic, was going to try and set it up beautifully, but did a bit too much with the rears, spins the car out. Going to be no improvement for him, and indeed I think no improvement for anyone inside of the top 10. O'Brien might be safe with another pole position. So here's Fontaine. 40 racewear car approaching the same complex where Kraus just spun. A little bit squirrely initially. Sets himself up And now onto that back straightaway. Not going to be the next car to see the line. That's going to be the 57 of Hugo Gallas, but with just a marginal improvement there. I don't think he finds any spots. Same can be said for the 53 of Forsyth. Fontaine does find some time. He goes to 13th. We've still got Matt Taylor, although Matt Taylor practicing what is a important pit entry. And Christopher on his return to the road courses finds 0.2 of a second, but it's not going to be an improvement in position. And the blue, white, and blue 40 racewear car going to line up at best in 19th spot. I say at best because here's the debutant. Jimbo Pfeiffer heads to the line. We've seen him in the sports car series. 27.9 is best so far. Almost exactly 0.4 quicker than that. Not going to see him improve though. 21st position where he will be. Eric Staropoli has 23 seconds to get to the line and will be the driver that sets the qualifying grid in many ways. Here he goes. Into the 126s it seems. But another one that finds improvement in time, but not improvement in position. Puts on a bit of a show on his way to the line. So it's qualifying in the books. It's Michael O'Brien on top once more. It's the 11th pole position in the 44 races that O'Brien has taken part in. And now he's going to lead us to the green for the very first time here at the Fuji Speedway. Coming off the back of the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series trip to this very facility with this very layout as well. Some of these drivers have done plenty of laps here. They have plenty of experience with which to fall back on. Ready to rumble you down through the starting grid though. Let's head down trackside and take you through that. Pole position 11 for Michael O'Brien, searching for win number 4. It took a while for the first, and they've started to come in spades since then. Phil Kraus spun on the final attempt in qualifying, but good enough for second. You'll see Matt Taylor in some new colors for Nezumi Graphics LC, hoping to bring some luck alongside with Sean Campbell, our championship leader. David Sirra and then Christopher Hill share row number 3, while back in 7th spot is the defending champion with that number 1, Mike Rasmussen. He's got Chris Fowler alongside, another one of the Nezumi Graphics LC machines, Tyler Graf, and then Alex Guyon, the rest of your top 10. It's going to be Richie Hearn in 11th spot with Chris Reagan, his Elite West teammate, to his outside. Sam Fontaine as his teammate, Luke Daniels for company on the 7th row of the grids. Teammate a splendid for some. For Gabe Wood, not so much. He's got Cristobal Valenzuela, Eric Staropoli, and then Rodrigo Munoz all around him. Counting down through your top 20, we find the likes of Christopher and Hugo Gallas as well. Those Backfire Motorsports trio all in one line. How are they going to play the start? Jimbo Pfeiffer on debut in 21st. He's got Sam Ryman and Craig Forsyth with the final drivers with times next to their names. Matt Wagner is going to be starting from 24th, the final driver in the field here today. It's our very first trip into the shadow of the mountains, but of course not our first trip into the land of the rising sun. As the drivers pull themselves away, it's that time where we can walk you through today's featured onboard camera in short time because they're heading up in through the final sector. Chris Fowler rides with Donate Life. Learn more about organ, eye, and tissue donation and register today at donatelife.com. New colors for Matt Taylor, but a familiar face in HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. And Richie Hearn, who's always someone to watch on the road courses, carries with him Next Level Racing. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. Don't forget the Speedway Showdown community event for Next Level Racing going on now as well. Coverage live on the Next Level Racing channels, courtesy of RaceSpotTV. But you're watching the Lionheart Retro Series. Almost at the halfway mark after this. It's 2 short tracks with which the drivers will have to focus their minds on. It is 44 laps, 1 stop. Time management going to play its part. Fuel management surely going to be something that they're concerned about as well. And now the field about to be left in the control of Michael O'Brien. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart ready to go for the start of the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji, and Michael O'Brien gets the jump in towards the longest straight potentially of the season. Great start at the front. Phil Kraus not compromised too much. It's Taylor that's trying to go defensive from Sean Campbell. Tidy initially. Guyon maybe trying to go a little bit aggressive further back through the field. That will compromise him down as they sweep in towards Coca-Cola corner. Look at them all trying to get single filed out. Don't want to run too wide on cold tires. Cold conditions as well early in the morning. There's Mount Fuji. And in towards the hairpin for the first time. Who's going to be brave? Who's going to make some sense? No one really thinks about it until you go back to almost 12th or so position. Couple of jumps on the initial race start, but it is the top two that were able to single file themselves on the jump. O'Brien from Kraus, from Campbell, from Taylor. WMP Racing Machine, the championship leader, able to cycle through up to third. So nice and tidy for those at the front. Not so for Jimbo Pfeiffer, who at the alternate layout that we use today, where there's no chicane and instead a fast right-hander into the final sector, is come unstuck. But he is the only driver to fall victim to Fuji Speedway on the opening lap. O'Brien will lead them to the line. Luke Daniels lit up the rear tires. He's dropping down through the field. But it's Kraus under pressure from Campbell. Draft in play as well. Championship leader not going to pop out. He knows that it's not worth it just yet. Christopher Hill wants to cycle his way on forward though. Matt Taylor doesn't want to fight. Slides the 31 down his inside and into fourth. Almost gets a little bit squirrely on the curve as well. But move assisted, move affected there. It's Chris Fowler that gets on past Mike Razmas. Razmas had tried to move into turn one, but clearly not going to be that simple by any means to keep yourself in front once you've cycled on through. Let's grab a look at the opening lap moments then, as they work their way on the second lap. There's Jimbo Pfeiffer on the outside of the 57, the Backfire Motorsports machine, and well, locks up the tires. And I guess, to be fair, not much that poor Jimbo Pfeiffer could do on debut as he struggles to get to grips with not just the car but maybe the drivers itself. Well, that was a big old tangle for sure, and Pfeiffer has now had to head down towards the pit lane. Luke Daniels, we said as well, had his little bit of drama in his 40 racewear number 28, and so let's check in with him. You can see he was alongside another one of the Backfire Motorsports contingent, but he just got tight and then on cold tires tried to get on the power and didn't have rear stability at all. So Hugo Gallus, the one that tangled up with Jimbo Pfeiffer. It's a big send up the inside from Rasmus. And this time he gets it done. Don't forget that we do have live race control that's going to take their look through the entirety of this race. Just been informed that the Gallus and Pfeiffer incident is under investigation. I don't think Luke Daniels is going to be able to claim that anyone came and hit him, although I guess you could claim Marcus Ericsson was there. Yeah, I've heard stranger things. So third and fourth, a bit of separation, and now Matt Taylor runs a little bit wide. It's David Silra that's going to take advantage and slip up into fifth spot. Taylor, after qualifying in third, now down to sixth spot. Hugo Gallus is going to get a drive-through penalty, and Matt Taylor self-inflicts pain on himself by running wide. Fortunately, just one position that he bleeds there. Definitely not what he would have been hoping. Finds himself now 4 seconds off of your race leader. Again, 44-lap race, fuel window out 24, maybe 25 laps. Surely there's going to be plenty of drivers thinking about what they can do in terms of numbers. Not the case if you're Sam Fontaine and Richie Hearn. Track position battle. It's Hearn up the inside, and that Elite West Racing number 70 reasserts his way up into 12. Fontaine bundled back to where he started in 13th. Can see those movers and shakers, by the way, on that right-hand side. It's relatively stagnant for most. -5 for Luke Daniels after his moment, but +3 for Rodrigo Munoz. Forsyth and Wagner down through the field as well. A similar sort of situation for them. This is obviously that different layout that we're running. Got mixed opinions. In some ways it removes a passing opportunity because there's no heavy braking zone there. But I also like that it puts you more on edge as you crest yourself into that final sector. Brings you with more speed into the complex, and so I'm not totally opposed to it by any means. It's definitely something that some drivers, I think, appreciated when we had the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series race. That was a big old lift from Sean Campbell. One thing on top of his mind. It's fuel mileage, at least for the time being, as we jump on board with a championship leader. So he's 14 races into his career, now 15, including today. Has 5 victories, 13 top 5s, 2 pole positions, averages a start of 6th, averages a finishes of 4th. These are incredible numbers for anyone. And that's why he leads the championship. The margin behind, not that large, of course. Not even halfway through this season, and so he will be thinking about the fact that he does have to keep one eye on those behind. Speaking of those behind, Gabe Wood, Eric Staropoli. One car goes airborne. Matt Wagner squeaks on through. And my goodness, pit crew's going to have some work to do after that one. So it's Gabe Wood that's in that yellow and white machine. Tries to get to the inside of Staropoli, who after a bit of a lock-up there in the 04, Staropoli ends up going a little bit airborne. We'll take a look from up above if we can. Race control is going to have another bit of drama to look at. Can see that he was alongside, but I mean, at some point Staropoli's got to turn in. So Gabe Wood going to maybe have to follow Staropoli down to pit lane. Staropoli is very much crawled to a halt, does not want to endanger himself on what is not the easiest of pit lane entries, especially given, remember, no pit lane limiter for these drivers. It's the 2 hands and the 2 feet. So it's 1 second at the front between O'Brien, Kraus, and Campbell. Pulled out about 2.5 seconds to Christopher Hill, who leads David Sirois, then with some margin back to Rasmus, who's got Taylor, Reagan, Fowler, and Graf all still in close pursuit. And speaking of Chris Reagan, seems like a good time to talk about our arena driver profile for today. It's the 64th start in that Elite West Racing number 19. 26 top 10s, 12 top 5s, best place of second. And just to put that in context, 9th all-time in top 10s, 13th all-time in top 5, so has been around the series for long enough after joining us almost 4 years ago now. Still searching, of course, for that elusive race victory as well as pole position. In a good spot right now to potentially be able to grab some decent championship points, especially with strategy having so much still left to figure out. Definitely don't think I'd want to be Michael O'Brien. Who's got the fastest lap of the race, you might be wondering? Well, Sean Campbell with a 25.531. Last time by, almost 2/10 off his fastest of a 25.324. Similar sort of drop off for O'Brien, 3/10 off his fastest benchmark. Of course, for O'Brien, like I said earlier, it took so long for him to grab that first victory. It's definitely given him a wave of confidence, and that's definitely, I think, taken him from these pole position margins into more winning positions. More drive-through penalties coming down. Gabe Wood, the latest to get one, of course, for his moment with Staropoli. Don't think anyone has necessarily expected a surprise there, and Gabe Wood's going to, I think, come down and serve that right now. End of lap number 7. Leaders not squabbling, but you know who is? Those behind. Sirois, Christopher Hill. We side by side in the Raven Lavoie Motorsports machine, going to slide back alongside and get into the racing groove on the entry into turn 1. Track falls away from you. Don't really want to be too offline, and got to be very careful at times as well. Reagan, Fowler, now starting to cost each other a bit of ground. Tyler Graf sat behind and wondering, well, what do I have to do to try and get my way through as well? Well, Reagan finds a way through, and now if Graf can go the long way around and hold it there, he'll get the inside back into the hairpin, but through 100R, Fowler holds on, and Graf, as much as he wanted to send it deep, knew that not even halfway through the few run, a bit too early to be going for moves that aggressive. It's a nice little tussle continuing to build for these drivers, that's for sure. We'll just have to keep an eye on the leaders as well, and as to whether we are going to see maybe Sean Campbell try and get in front of Phil Kraus. Maybe not now, but maybe 16 laps into this race, 2/3 through the fuel run. We start to see some chopping and changing. We are going to see Chris Fowler get a pretty good run out of that final corner, and as he runs his way all the way to the sausage curbs on the outside of the corner, pretty good toe that he's going to get on the run down this almost 1.5 kilometer straight. Tyler Graf not close enough, that's for sure. He's close enough to have a good look at Fowler going to the inside. West Racing number 19 doesn't want to give it up, and Graf overcooks it under brakes. Very deep. Somehow Reagan doesn't get tagged. Graf holds on to his position, all things considered, but goodness gracious me. Scary, scary moments there. So easy to do, especially given that Graf was on the curbing. So the left side had a different amount of grip than the right side tires, and so as you take a look at the replay, just look at him effectively lock all four once the brake pressure. He couldn't figure out the brake pressure that he needed to be able to slow down in the nick of time. Unfortunately, Reagan had either released the brakes in seeing the puff of smoke, or is far enough in front that it's only potentially some flat spots for Tyler Graf to now contend with. See if Alex Gouillon's going to be able to close on up. So now Sirois chasing down Campbell, Kraus and O'Brien. Feels very on point and on topic to say it's the peloton chasing down the breakaway at the front. And we're on to the 9th lap of this race. Oh, Christopher on his return to the road courses. I mean, Fuji's a difficult place to come, and he's learning just how difficult it can be. Cristobal Valenzuela is going to get past Richie Hearn, by the way. As well, for Christopher, I think he was out of shape before he really even entered the corner. Does a nice little 360 to get out of there. You can just see too much speed initially, trying to bleed it off. Couldn't do so in the nick of time. You can see that big Waco spanner, by the way. I laugh every time inside my head I see it, because I've commentated in sim racing on a team called the Waco Split Table X Pew Pew Racing. So, yes, it does apparently have some relation to Japanese motorsports. Who would have known? For a moment, I thought Sean Campbell was losing the draft of those up front, but through the final corner, he's still within 1 second of those top two. Maybe just trying to very much work to not 24 laps, which is our fuel number. If we can get to 25, 26, can he shave a crucial couple of seconds off his pit lane time? We'll close up in that concertina under the brakes, but not necessarily closing up as much as one would have expected. I don't think that he necessarily needs to. Oh, Phil Kraus aggressive. Now, Was that too aggressive from Kraus? Is that going to be a slowdown, or has he gotten away with one? It's an interesting definition of track limits if you can juke through a bollard, but I guess iRacing is the adjudicator, the judge, jury, and, you know, the legislation. So, you know, I mean, if it holds, it holds, I guess. Who am I to judge? Definitely not capable of wheeling these machines like these drivers are doing now. Right on board with Sean Campbell. Look at the rotation for Phil Kraus. Fixed setup that these drivers are contending with. They've got to adapt their driving style to what they've got underneath them. So, I guess for some as well, how they drive through the run ends up changing quite a bit. So no real margin to speak of between these front runners. Sirois trying to break away in that peloton, but bringing with him Hill, Razmas, and Taylor in his quest to try and close. Quarter race distance down. If you're wondering as well, with a 24-plus lap fuel window, why drivers might not come in, say, on lap 20. Well, these cars get faster the lighter they are. And it's not just the fuel that makes the difference there, but tires. Now, tires are concerned, though. Even though these cars ran with bias ply tires, which are designed to go full race distances, recent updates have meant not necessarily possible. A couple of drivers having indicated to me 4 tires is going to be their call when they come down pit lane. There's no pit limiter as well, so making sure that you hit your mark is going to be paramount, which, whoa, for Tyler Graf seems to be struggling to do. That's down at the hairpin, and now he's trying to back himself up and do the world's slowest 3-point turn. Those are painful, painful situations. Let's see how he found that, how he got himself into that situation on the back of Alex Guyon, and a bit too much curb, unfortunately. Sitting, and then getting out of there just because he did not want to be in trouble if anyone else was going to close. Let's just ride on board with him if we can. Can see it just got unsettled and got away from him down the bottom of the apex, and unfortunate moment there. Still no dramas at the front, as you'd suspect. I think the thing I'm most surprised about is that Hill, Razmas, and Taylor are seemingly being relatively orderly as well. And so it means as we work our way, and now already 12 laps complete through this HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji, it's Michael O'Brien that continues to pave the way. It was another blistering time in qualifying, the 11th pole position in his career, but the Kiwi being chased down by 2 quote-unquote rookies, 2 championship favorites, Kraus and Campbell on the hunt here in the shadow of Mount Fuji. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and Round 9 coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing. We're in the shadow of Mount Fuji for the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji, the very first time that we've broken out the Lotus 79s here at this fantastic Grand Prix racing facility. Delighted to have your company here on RaceSpotTV. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Don't forget you can follow alongside with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing to follow along with your favorite teams and drivers. Continues to be a three-car train at the front, but increasingly seems like it's brewing into a bit of a battle. O'Brien's led for almost 15 full laps, but with Phil Krause and Sean Campbell looking increasingly hungry, they build onto one of the longest straights in global motorsports to power to the line, and now more than halfway through the fuel window. Not pulling away anymore from those behind. And in fact, if anything, you can see David Sirwar pulling a gap to Christopher Hill and starting to find himself with one task at hand, and that's closing to these three at the front. Tyler Graf's recovery drive continues. He's going to pass Luke Daniels up in through the final sector. After lighting up the rear tires, he's definitely one that in the pit stop phase will be hoping that he can get a fresh set of boots onto that car. With Sirwar pulling away, Christopher Hill increasingly having to look in the mirrors because Mike Rasmussen, the defending champ, trying to pop to the outside through 100R, longer radius through the corner just costs you so much time. And as they try and dance on the feet down through the gears, Rasmussen gets all sorts of squirrely there. Not really sure how he got that one back under control. There's so much power in these Lotus 79s, and it comes on with a delay often as well. I think that's the main thing to remember. It's 500 horsepower. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's the weight of the car. Again, pocket rocket. That's how I described it slightly earlier. Still waiting to try and see if Matt Taylor is going to be able to recover his way up after starting in third position. Is now down to 8th. Oh, excuse me, down to 7th in his 8 machine. Numbers are always easy, aren't they? But in front of him, the 4 drivers that have taken advantage at his misfortune. Can tell that the fuel mileage worry is starting to be less of a concern. Zumi Graphics LC swap around as Rasmus gets passed by Taylor, who almost ran into the side of Christopher Hill. That wasn't a very heroic move, but on the anchors, everyone sorts it out in the nick of time. Hill still holds on to 5th. For goodness gracious me. Almost a day late and $1 short. And just look rearwards here from Christopher Hill's number 31. Can't really see just how close it was. Well, there you could see just the fact that there almost was contact, and it was the drive off the corner that allowed Hill to hold on. Sweeping through the right they go. Taking themselves onto the brakes in through that chicane. Maybe 7 more laps again before they head off to pit lane. Pit lane has a bit of a jink on the entry. It's a chicane. And these cars could be quite fun, but I'm sure also quite scary. See who's going to be the first to blink. Surely it's not going to be Krause or Campbell. O'Brien's been punching the hole in the air for 17 laps and counting. Is it finally time for Phil Krause to push forward, you wonder? Well, there's the answer. No way. Well, some mixed opinions from the drivers on the setup that they were dealing with in the build-up. Some happy, some not so happy. That's one of those compromises with fixed setup competitions, though, at the end of the day. So, whoever's been able to figure the most out of it, it's sometimes where it helps if you are in a team as large in numbers as Nizumi Graphics LC. Look at their representation on that left-hand side. 1st, 6th, 7th, 8th, 15th. You can share telemetry, you can share tips and tricks, which if you are Phil Krause with, both of his Team Talent teammates, Andrew Wood and Dan Zager's missing in action today, he doesn't have that luxury, that advantage of being able to do so. You can see as well that for 40 Racewear, they've got Fontaine in 13th, Daniels in 16th, a couple of cars further down, and on debut, unfortunately, Jimbo Pfeiffer made his way 2 laps into this race and no longer. Not as unfortunate as Tom Blomqvist did, but still misfortunate nonetheless. There's the jink to the inside, and a little bit more dramatic than I expected this early in the race. Almost contact as Kraus faded up to the outside groove on the braking into turn number 1. Yes, he has the advantage, but it's not done and dusted into turn 2 until O'Brien finally lets it go. And there is a new race leader. His name is Phil Kraus. Sean Campbell, is he going to now think it's time to follow through? I wonder if Kraus thinks he's saved enough to do 25 if he pushes hard from now. And so he'll try and build a bit of a gap. It's taken him, 18 and a half laps to be able to build that number up? There is no way. There is no way for Michael O'Brien that he has been able to save that much fuel, but have to wait and see here. Up into that final sector once again. Campbell now the one breathing down the back of O'Brien's 45. Remember those statistics. For Michael O'Brien, it is his 11th different pole position. He is still searching for his 4th victory. I forget how many pole positions he got before his first victory. He's hoping that's all my talking is for naught. On board with the championship leader. And here the clutch go in as well. Fuel mileage the only consideration for Sean Campbell. Of course, won here when the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series made its way to Fuji for the Gomez Sim Industries Grand Prix of Fuji presented by Arena TV. That was on July the 10th, so just 10 days ago. Not that long ago by any means. Campbell's getting ready, I'm pretty sure, for some double duty this weekend as well. I'll just call that out. Expecting him to be part of the iRacing 24 Hours of Spa, the Falcon Tire 24 Hours of Spa as well. But then I'm wondering if he's going to be part of the World Championship qualifiers kicking off for the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup. So going to be interesting to see how he gets on there. I know of at least one driver who is doing a two-man effort for the 24-hour race, which means having to do 12 hours of driving there, in addition to racing in the qualifiers. I'm doing that on commentary, so 12 hours plus effectively 2 more, so 14 hours of 24. I don't know when I'm going to sleep. Don't think I'm going to sleep. It's a good thing that I've got a long flight on Sunday evening, which means that I am a question mark to be here for next Thursday's trip to Iowa for our Next Level Racing Iowa 150, which I don't think you guys are going to be too sad about, given that it's already been 20 laps of me blabbering about and seemingly no end in sight. Struggles continue for a handful of drivers. Tyler Graf, Luke Daniels have been involved in issues, but Matt Taylor trying to go on the offense. And Phil Kraus makes a mistake, runs wide at Coca-Cola. And now if he's got a slowdown penalty, we'll try and serve it with as little damage as possible. What happened to the private label Team Hype machine? Well, he's been pushing the limits of the track through that corner for a number of occasions, and well, the track ended up biting back. Let's ride on board with Kraus and just take a look. That car was loose before he even got to the apex, if we're being totally fair. Not easy by any means. What happened to Luke Daniels in the 40 Racewear machine as he was trying to hunt down Tyler Graf? This was a while ago, a lap or two ago. Spins himself around, and then Tyler Graf, a lap or two later, very same spot, coming through, but safely navigates that situation. It's on the downshift, you can almost tell the way the car kicks away there, excuse me. That was on the downshift. Let's ride on board and listen in with the Nizumi Graphics LC car. That's a weird one. That is bizarre. It doesn't even sound like it was on the downshift. There's Daniels that's gone around. Reagan becomes the first to hide himself from camera shots and head down on towards the pit lane. And so it's 22 laps in. It's a little bit earlier than expected for some, but maybe for Reagan. Splits the race almost in half. He wants to just push. Taylor's been able to finally get in front of Christopher Hill, but it's come after losing almost 5 seconds to David Sirah, who's been able to close on the leading 3, only to now 3 seconds. It's taken just under 20 laps or so, 15 for Sirah to close 1 second. He's only got 22 more at the end of this one to close the next 4. So next time by will be half race distance. Reagan stationary for 8.8 seconds. That's the benchmark with which we'll track any subsequent stops. Is O'Brien going to be in this time by? Surely not, although David Sirah seems to be fading drivers right. And indeed, the Raven Lavoie car, after pushing helter-skelter, dives to the lane and shows us what it's all about. Swap around at the front as Campbell's going to jink up the inside of O'Brien and make a third new leader of this race. But ultimately, it's still all on the fuel mileage games with which the race lead hangs in the balance. O'Brien shows his nose through Coca-Cola, and they will squabble side by side. So much respect shown, and Campbell can't afford to drift up too high. Finally on power down, able to re-establish himself in the lead. But now 3 cars split and continuing to fight. For David Sirah, this is exactly what he will want to see. 9 seconds stationary for the 99 machine. Where is he going to fare out? That's the important question. Clean air for him. Longest pit stop so far on the day. See how it plays out. Expecting a couple drivers to be under the 8.5 second pit stop time for sure. O'Brien slightly defensive up through the final corner on the 23rd asking. Is that him getting ready to fade off to pit lane? Think it is. For Christopher Hill, he's going to be in front of Matt Taylor. So they've swapped around, but with both seemingly, or at least one, off to the lane. Taylor's going to stay out there. Might have some traffic to contend with, but it's with the leaders now split on the call. It's not a surprise for Michael O'Brien to be in that bit earlier. He was the one leading for so long. How long will he be stationary for? He's up on the jacks, that's for sure. Tires going on to the 45 Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks car. Rolls off and away, 9.3 seconds. So a bit longer than Sirah, but crucially, not necessarily too long. O'Brien's found himself plenty of clean air, and now will get his tires up to temperature. That's going to be the crucial thing. Sean Campbell for Phil Kraus, who comes into the lane, who's going to have to fail 1 lap earlier than the other. 24 laps was the thought, but Campbell's been saving so much fuel that we're thinking he might be able to get to 25. Christopher Hill's the biggest loser, it would seem, in the pit stop cycle. He's lost out to Mike Razmas, but it is going to be 2 drivers in, both Kraus and Campbell in synchrony. Dive to pit lane. That CCTV camera is going to have a great shot while the camera is going past. And so for Michael O'Brien, in the final sector already, doesn't want to spin it on cooler tires, but 1 lap difference on fuel could be the difference between the victory. Campbell finds the box. Kraus does the same. No tires for Campbell. That's a gamble and a half. 8.3 versus 8.8 stationary. 2 very different calls on pit lane, and O'Brien's not even close, but it's Campbell that holds the lead. Championship leader descends out of turn number 1 and sets his sights on breaking away from Phil Kraus. 1.2 the gap there. And in cutting down almost a second on the pit lane time compared to Michael O'Brien, as well as getting the most of a lighter car, the top two have been able to run away. For O'Brien, it might be another pole position not converted to victory, but ultimately strategy was not on his side today, and you don't want to play the game of no you go, because ultimately you just introduce more variables into the equation. More cars can stack up behind if you let that happen. So everyone's down onto the lane and finished for the most part. Razmas behind Taylor. Separated now from Christopher Hill, as I mentioned. Pit stop cycles always do have a tendency to split things up, as you'd expect, and partially that is because of the pit stop time. You can see that on the left-hand side of your screens, where Sean Campbell amongst the shortest of them all, if not the shortest, with 8.3 seconds in the box. We heard him clutching in as well. Kraus 8.8. 8.6 for Razmas, call that one out. 9.5 for Hill, maybe the longest of the regular pit stops that we see. It's so important as well that the pit lane entry and exit cycle is worked through effectively too. Something that I think many sometimes forget. Looking rearwards from Matt Taylor in the HyperX onboard camera. It's not a bad view, but it's a better sound, isn't it, at the end of the day? 500 horses or so. Lightweight, nimble car. Very different in a lot of ways to modern Formula One machines, but of course the ground effect aero that was reintroduced for this most recent generation of Formula One cars, very similar to what these Lotus 79s pioneered. Campbell's breaking away, 2.5 seconds clear at the front, and if you let Sean Campbell break away, well, just ask anyone in the GT3 Pro class in the Butt Kicker Sports Car Series what will happen. It's going to be tires, that's a question, I guess, come the end, because Phil Kraus told me he was going to take 4 tires before the race, but we saw Sean Campbell did not go up on on the jacks at all. So it's no tires versus 4 tires. Questionable about what happened with O'Brien. Well, at the very least, you'd assume 2 tires for the Kiwi. Got some Audi Sport banners around. Wonder how much longer those will be up there in the real world. With Audi Sport's withdrawal from effectively customer racing. Sale of the cars is going to stop. They will continue supporting those clients, of course, who have already bought cars and are racing them out there in the real world. The pro drivers that made up the factory pool will find themselves having to find new homes, and it's why a handful of them went in search of pastures new on the dawn of the new sports car prototype era, and so that's always been a lot of fun. Chris Fowler is trying to spool himself back up after an incident, and so what's happened to his number 20? Is he really cursed, or is this self-inflicted? I'm going to say self-inflicted. I mean, you can make an argument that he was cursed once he was off the track. Yes. But it looks fine. It looks tidy. He runs wide. He bounces over the curb. Suddenly it's all not fine. Self-curse, I think, is probably the most apt description there. And so now Fowler's dropped back behind, not just Reagan, who he chases down. You can see Guyon in one of those Raven Lavoie machines just up the road. The gold nose on the Lotus 79. That's a 2-second margin that he's got back to Chris Reagan. Once again, you can see those team affiliations on the side. Nizumi Graphics LC3, 5 and 6, along with Fowler now in 10th. It's WMP Racing that leads. Team Talent have Kraus in 2nd, but no one else representing them today. Synergy, Raven Lavoie, excuse me, have Syrah and Guyon in 4th and 8th positions, and Elite West Racing, Richie Hearn 12th, Reagan in 9th position. Interesting day, I think, all things considered, for that team championship. So with the margin not really moving much at the front between any of the top three, tires seem to be holding on quite decently for the time being. Not yet into the final 14 laps or so, though. And for Sean Campbell, he's only 3 laps into the second stint of tires. I'm quite curious what the percentages were come the pit stop, because Phil was pretty committed when he was talking with me pre-race that 4 tires or nothing. Or 4 tires or he wasn't racing is probably the right way to say it. 4 tires or crashing. Maybe, I think that's a more apt way. We get there eventually with our words. So I don't know what that translates to in tire percentages. Is that risk of puncture? Is that risk of car slipping from underneath you? Prous, of course, super heated one of his set of tires with one of the slight skids that he had, but you wouldn't expect that to be the major talking point. Campbell just within visual distance. Up through the crest you go, a little bit sideways on entry into that final sector for private label team hype number 4. This time by, it's going to be 29 laps complete, 15 to go. Cloud cover continues to be rather drastic. Jason Brophy on the pit wall for Phil Krause is just giving me some information that they're not so worried about punctures necessarily. It's that cliff that they are a little bit concerned by, and so the magic of RaceSpotTV graphics means let's talk you through the crucial lap times and where they play right now. So going back through the last 15 or so, Sean Campbell mid-25s on one side of the pit stops, has been quite consistently on the same sort of ballpark in the second stint now that he has come back out on those tires. For Phil Krause, I mean, near as makes no difference in terms of lap times on the outside of the pit stop, so since he's come down and gone on the tires. You see lap 21, that was the mistake that we saw from him, but outside of that, 25.177. Krause is definitely flying out there today, and that is indeed why he does have the fastest lap of the race. Final sector once again. See that traffic is a factor. Campbell didn't get it at the most opportune place either initially, and so Craig Forsyth, the first 79 to be swept on through. The margin I don't think necessarily came down, but would be a concern. Jason Brophy also says, by the way, that I've thrown Andrew Wood and Dan Zegers under the bus for not being here to support Team Talent, but Andrew Wood's gone to Belgium for some real-world karting, so that's some pretty exciting stuff. He has not given an excuse for Dan Zegers, though. So I'm going to read into that as Dan does not have a valid excuse. So a long way to go, of course, here at Fuji. As much as for Sean Campbell he leads, we're into those final 14 laps, though, waiting for that cliff to present itself. Fowler still hunting down Reagan in that Donate Life sponsored car. We can jump on board the Donate Life camera as well, right over the shoulder of that number 20. No fuel saving now, that's for sure. Drivers just trying to make sure that they can go a lap or two longer and put a little less fuel into the car on the first phase of the race when they are doing the saving. Once you're out, it's maximum attack, although for poor Chris Fowler, almost another moment there running wide out of Coca-Cola. That would have been a rather nervous moment, that is for sure. Prowse gets past Forsyth as well, exactly a lap later after Sean Campbell does. Same spot on track as well, so relatively equal you'd have to assume in terms of delta. Running out of time though for that cliff to present itself. Ticking down to 13 to go. Next up in terms of traffic is going to be Matt Wagner in the number 2. And a bit of gap, 5 seconds to Sam Ryman in the number 63. He's in 18th spot. The Lionheart admins jumping into the chat to joke that they see some rain developing now, and potentially it's time for a caution. Luke Daniels is going to claim there was rain down on the track. Rain's not too far on the horizon for iRacing. See what I did there? And so that is definitely going to be a concern here at Fuji, known for its changeable weather. Here's what happened with Luke Daniels. Just a big old moment, as another big old moment there for Chris Fowler, you can see in the live pictures, who runs himself off the track at turn number 1. And let's go pick up what happened to him. Remember, Tyler Graf's locked up there once, and I think Chris Fowler just got scared for a sec that he was going to go a little bit too deep, and decided that he wanted to make sure there was no risk whatsoever. And Reagan was able to swoop through without too much drama. I think Private Label Team Hype are calling for oil on the racetrack in the final sector. Anything to try and bridge this buffer to Sean Campbell, who has gotten past Wagner. No major issues, like I was mentioning. Slipstream playing its part for Razmas, defending champion on the back of the driver that's been in the championship fight for the last 2 years. Matt Taylor's been so close, and now doesn't have to defend. There's some communication between the Nezumi Graphics LC pair there, I would wager. Riding off the nose cone of Razmas into a tight turn 3, whatever. The corner numbers are just a suggestion at the end of the day. And so, who knows what the corner number is. For like Razmas as well, see on that paint scheme, it's got Barnaby on the side of the car. If you're wondering what that is one of the music projects that Mike Razmas is involved with. I believe he is a drummer, can play the drums. I'm trying to think of what the stereotype around drummer is, and then I realized I couldn't think of that off the top of my head and didn't want to say something offensive. So as a guitar player, I'll say that he's got a much better sense of rhythm than I probably can. Yes. And it shows in this Lotus 79. Because I definitely have no sense of rhythm when it comes to those downshifts on occasion. Very easy to be a little bit aggressive when you come from cars that traditionally have anti-downshift rev protection and whatnot into this machine with no driver aids and having to figure it out. That's why Sean Campbell is so impressive in so many ways, because limited practice in so many things, because he does so many different competitions. He jumps from Lotus 79 to Formula 3 to GT3 to NASCAR Xfinity, Porsche Cup, back over to GT3 machines, prototypes. Does a little bit of everything and seems to always be quick at it as well. One thing that I know that you cannot be quick through necessarily. You can only minimize your pain through is traffic, and so that's what Sean Campbell's having to do right now. Dices past the 28 of Luke Daniels. It's a bit of a wobble through the final corner, but really under control. Kraus gets a four-wheel drift out of the corner as well. This time by, it's going to be under 10 laps to go. It's 2.7 seconds, the margin at the front. Phil Kraus still trying to hunt down Sean Campbell, but the championship leader continuing to show why he is maybe the championship favorite. Rumbling for the first time here under the shadow of the Fuji mountain, although it's the 7th time the Lotus 79s have made their way in Lionheart Retro Series racing action to Japan. Don't go anywhere. The run to the checkered flag coming up next on RaceSpotTV. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and to the final 8 laps of the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji. It's Sean Campbell that continues to lead the way, but you can see that traffic's still playing its part. There's plenty of intrigue still left to go as Phil Krause continues to try and hunt down the race leader here as the Lionheart Retro Series makes its very first trip over to the Fuji Speedway. Hello guys! Arjuna Kanki Party on hand for the racing action. Don't forget you can follow along by going to RaceSpot.tv/timing to find live timing and scoring of your favorite team and drivers. Closing stages, tire gambles, well, paying off if you're Sean Campbell, not paying off maybe if you're Phil Krause. No tires was the gamble that we saw from the WMP Racing number 26, and with the amount of rubber that seems to be on the track, the tires just giving him the amount of purchase that he needs to be able to hold on. Not sure all drivers necessarily would agree with that statement though. Let's check out what happened to oh, that's a bizarre incident. Richie Hearn's probably going to get past Cristobal Valenzuela. That's in through turn number 1, the bottom right corner of your screen. Just right on board with the number 98. Big save, oh goodness. Quick hands, I tell you, from Tyler Graf, but not necessarily what he would have wanted. I can promise you that. Still has a couple of laps to hold off maybe Christopher. He's only 4 seconds off, so could be a challenge there. Just keep your eye out. 2.2 the margin at the front, though. Christopher is going to be lap traffic for Sean Campbell, and then Phil Krause to deal with. But in this inaugural visit over to Fuji, the Retro Series, pole position going to be down in 3rd after leading the majority of the first half of the race. Sean Campbell probably going to go down with most laps led, I think, based on the timing of various pit stops. Ultimately will be determined by the actual timing line and when the driver has actually crossed the line to lead on a lap or not. 2 seconds though. There's surely some optimism. Phil Krause is being as calm as he can be. Smooth with the inputs, gentle with the power. You're asking a lot. Mentally fatigued, I'm sure, after almost 38 perfect laps. Krause had that one blemish that dropped him 1.7 seconds back. Almost the difference between him and Sean Campbell. Draft's going to slingshot him potentially into turn number 1 if Christopher is going to allow him on through. The private label team hype car goes aggressive under the brakes and now closes the crucial couple of tenths that maybe he wanted. It is very much like stalking prey. Inch by inch you get closer. Corner by corner you push, and you push too much. Phil Krause has gone off the track at Coca-Cola. O'Brien cycles through to 2nd. Sirra might even grab 3rd. And there's too much damage on the car. It's been 0 or 0 for Phil Krause, and the streak continues. He's on the flatbed, heading back to pit lane. You seemingly can't look away from the private label team hype number 4. Once again, too much speed on entry, but this time with not quick enough reactions. You could tell even from trying to spin the car around that it wasn't all pointing the way that it was meant to go. And so Phil Krause, epitome of checkers or wreckers. There's the off-board view. It was a big bit of contact as well. It's not small. Big bit of drama as well. See if we can pick up what's also happened with Luke Daniels, by the way. His final car still running. Get some points on the board at the very least. It's up over the crest, just a little bit of rear-end slipperiness, and he loses out to Sam Ryman, Matt Wagner, and Craig Forsyth. Well, that's a costly mistake. Sean Campbell hoping no mistakes as he works with 5 to go. Halfway through the lap next time by is going to be 4 to go. if you are Phil Kraus as well, I guess the championship's already somewhat of a far stretch. Yes, I'm trying to hype up the fact that Sean Campbell's only 50 points in the championship lead, but with the level of consistency that we tend to see from him, you're a brave soul if you foresee a possibility in where Phil Kraus, in which Sean Campbell goes through an extended patch without any sort of success. And so that's where the question marks will be raised around any championship hopes, and so going to be curious to track that, how it's all going to play out. Mention that Christopher's making his return to the road courses for the first time in a while. That's Michael O'Brien through, and then through the final corner. Gives Michael O'Brien a bit of a code red, code brown, however you want to put it. Stouffer ends up initially losing out to Sam Ryman, but interestingly has been able to hold on to that position. They're going to squabble in these closing stages. A couple of cars are relatively close, not just these two, but Craig Forsyth, Matt Wagner as well. Forsyth just sent it up the inside and being able to stop it on a dime. Turned the car through, slid up to 17th spot. Phil Kraus describes it best. It was fun till it wasn't. And summing up the incident, bonk. Apt description, Phil. Phil can also maybe chime his chats about his thoughts about the setup into chat. Maybe you can also blame Jason Brophy for that, because Jason apparently was telling Phil to send it. Sent it a little bit too deep. 8 seconds, still the margin at the front though. David Siwa going to be quite happy with the fact that he was able to pick his way through the gaggle initially, and then very much settled into third position. And once you find yourself in a rhythm, so important to break away. Look at Taylor and Razmas behind. There's not just half the straight separating them, but 2 lapped cars as well. So, not an ideal situation by any means. But slightly out of place maybe in qualifying, he would have said. Being able to cycle his way on forward. Matt Taylor's, after starting up in third, dropping as low as 7th at one point, taking some new colors on that number 8, up into the top 4. Might be wondering what could have been, but ultimately, it's one of those races where fuel mileage played such an important part initially. Then you were so focused on hitting a number, you weren't necessarily trying to make your moves to try and cycle back up to regather lost positions. And once it's go time post pit stops, limited time to make things happen. See how long the paint scheme lasts as well. I'm quite curious, because where's the team continuity? There's the Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks number 8. There's the Graphics LC Madworks number 45. And Chris Fowler's number 20. So you can see O'Brien and Fowler still share some base car designs and whatnot. I mean, it's about as perfect as you can get for a team design that's easy for commentators to pick apart. So 10 out of 10 for that. But Matt Taylor loses some points for then having a very different paint scheme, which isn't part of the team philosophy. Bringing that up because apparently the moaning in the commentary booth about how some paint schemes in top split iRacing competitions look too similar. We've been able to get convinced the Apex Racing team to get a new livery. They'll debut it this coming weekend in their partnership with Mercedes-AMG, but yeah, liveries. Make it as simple as possible for your commentators, because simple-minded folk at the best of times. And I speak from personal experience. Sean Campbell out of the final corner. Gets ready to take another victory here at the Fuji Raceway in Lionheart competition, but one more lap to go before he can truly celebrate. 4.5 kilometers separate Sean Campbell from the victory. He's got 8 seconds back as mentioned. Are we going to see a fight between Razmas and Taylor coming to the white flag? They push each other all the way. Championship rivals turn teammates. It's an interesting dichotomy with which they will continue, I'm sure, to tussle. Tussling as well, 40 Racewear teammates. Sam Ryman, +7, gets past Christopher around the outside. Will concede the position. I don't think there was necessarily much of a fight that was ever going to be offered. Next couple of rounds going to be interesting in the championship complexion because over to Iowa, over to Phoenix. 2 short tracks coming up. And then there's the first half of the season done. Fuji, its own sort of road course in many ways, but if our championship leader can navigate through the next 2 rounds, through into the middle of August, 12 races will be complete in the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing, and Sean Campbell may very well be the championship leader. It's another race victory, the 6th for Sean Campbell, who comes out on top in the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji. A daring drive in terms of strategy to take no tires. He forced Phil Krause into a mistake, and it's Campbell that celebrates. Michael O'Brien goes from pole position to 2nd, but he will be delighted with the points that he accumulates and limits the damage to Sean Campbell. David Sirra able to climb his way to the final step of the podium. Interesting race, all things considered, and gets even more interesting as Matt Wagner through the final corner has a little bit of a moment. We will take a look at what happened there. It's so easy on power down just to light up the rears. Only nosed it into the wall, fortunately, and as he spun it back around, no one was coming with which that he necessarily had to worry about. You can just see the roar of the engine, hear it, and the hands trying to gather it up. Matt Wagner proving that this track, this combo, such a difficult combination to master. Final 2 cars are coming to the line, and then we will be able to grab a look at your arena race results. Sam Fontaine and Rodrigo Munoz scored as the final cars on the leading lap, and so it means that we can take a look at those race results. 9 seconds maybe doesn't tell the full story for Sean Campbell at the front, but it is the race victory ultimately, the 6th in 15 attempts. That will be ultimately what go into the history books. O'Brien is able to grab 2nd in front of Sirra, while Taylor and Razmas and the Nizumi Graphics LC machines 4th and 5th split by 6/10 at the line. Christopher Hill drops back but still grabs 6th in front of Alex Guyon, Chris Reagan, Chris Fowler and Richie Hearn. Just 2 rookies in the top 10 as the veterans very much make themselves known. Cristobal Valenzuela 11, just the 11th car on the lead lap along with Sam Fontaine and Rodrigo Munoz. Tyler Graff 1 lap down along with the 40 Racewear trio of Sam Ryman, Christopher and Craig Forsyth. Unacceptable Racing's Matt Wagner spinning to the line, but 1 lap down as well. Luke Daniels found himself slightly adrift, but able to cycle himself in front of Phil Krause, who was our last retiree, amongst those like Hugo Gallus, Gabe Wood, Eric Saropoli, and then Jimbo Pfeiffer on debut. Not getting, unfortunately, very far into the race. 2 laps was all he saw before he made his way back to pit lane. It's time to make our way in towards our Next Level Racing pre-race show, because it's a great opportunity to dissect the race and to chat to some of the drivers. Already standing by in HyperX Victory Lane is Sean Campbell, who's going to talk us through the call for no tyres. Sean, I talked with Phil before the race. He told me he was taking 4 tyres no matter what. What was going through your mind? Talk us through the no tyres.
I mean, it didn't feel that bad, honestly. I noticed in the pit stop that the left front was a little low, but the rest of the tires were fine. I think had it been hotter, which I think it was in the practice sessions and everything, had it been hotter, we probably would have taken 4 tires, but it felt pretty comfortable.
I do think maybe those warmer conditions might have been part of it. I think plenty of rubber to deal with as well. It's been a pretty good start to the season, all things considered. But I'm quite curious how you're feeling going into the next 2 rounds, because we've got Iowa, we got Phoenix coming up to close out the first half of the season. And yes, we've been to New Hampshire, but no short tracks are really like Iowa and Phoenix.
Yeah, actually, I'll be honest with you, I haven't done Iowa ever, but it's exciting to do something new, right? I've seen the racing there before, and I've heard it's really good, and I've seen that it's really good, so that's exciting. Scared of the tire wear, though.
I guess we found at least something new for you to do, which is a good thing, because I'm pretty sure you've got a busy weekend coming up, not just with the 24-hour race, but potentially some other stuff going on as well.
Slightly busy, yeah. Hopefully, we're going to see hopefully if PESC actually ends up happening. I'm terrified, though. I'm kind of slow in the Porsche Cup.
Well, best of luck, Sean, as you work your way through what I'm sure is a continuously busy time in sim racing for you. 6th win of your Lionheart Retro Series career, and we'll see how things go in Iowa in 7 days' time.
Hopefully good.
Some new stuff for Sean Campbell to figure out, it sounds like, but Michael O'Brien once again managed to get it all sorted in qualifying, but then was not in the best position to work the strategy game. Michael punching the hole in the air and compromised on fuel.
Yeah, I was supposed to get my first pole of the year, but yeah, not the best race for it. I was hoping they'd fight a little bit more at the start so I could break the toe, but they didn't, and then I was pretty much coasting that entire final sector to get them to pass, but they had no interest in passing.
I didn't even realize that was your first pole position of the year. That's how crazy this season has been, but ultimately you didn't get the fighting happening your way, but you made the most of the bad situation, I guess, you know, able to take advantage of Krause's mistakes and minimize the championship damage to Sean Campbell.
Yeah, on pace, they were obviously gone. I didn't have quite enough fuel in that second stint, so I had to save for the first half. But yeah, Phil was gone anyway. But yeah, you got to make it to the end to get the position, I guess.
Well, I did think that the fuel mileage was going to be such an important game to play, but next up, Iowa. Sean Campbell's never been there before. Talk us through what we should expect over in our Next Level Racing event there.
Oh, I don't know if I'm the one to talk to about oval strategy and things, but I really enjoy short tracks in this car. Yeah, fuel's going to be a thing, I assume, and the way this thing's been running this year, I assume tyres will be a thing as well.
Well, you got more knowledge than Sean Campbell with which to impart, so at least there's a couple of tidbits there. Congratulations on the second, Michael, and looking forward to seeing you in Iowa in a week's time.
Thanks, Arjuna.
Always great to chat with Michael O'Brien. One more chat to go through in our podium sit-through, and it is David Sirois who took advantage of Phil Krause's mistake to gleefully take a podium spot. But David, it was the first stint where you had to battle your way through to the front of the chasing cars and then break away. Talk us through that, because that's ultimately what led to this result.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Congratulations to Sean for his win. Those cars are so fast. This week the car was fantastic to drive. It was probably the best car I had in all my races here, and I had a poor start and got back to 6th place, and I had to fight to move up in the field. I knew I had the pace to follow the leaders, but I knew that my strategy to change tires was not very good to follow them. But I'm very happy with this podium. I'm so happy to be here.
What a competitive championship we have this year as well. So many new faces. You're still up there in the top 5, continuing to show your strength on the road courses and the ovals. We're going to 2 short tracks coming up next. How confident are you feeling about Phoenix and Iowa?
Well, Iowa was my worst race last year. I had no pace last year, so I'm very... I don't really know what will happen at Iowa. I will have to work hard to be in the top 5. But otherwise, I'm more and more confident in the oval racing, and I'm enjoying them much more than in my first year. So yeah, it should be good.
And you're getting all your pole positions on the ovals as well. So clearly you figured out something there. David, congratulations on the podium. Hopefully you'll figure something out at Iowa and enjoy it a little bit more than last year.
Thank you, and thanks to Labra Motorsport, Alex Guyon, George Anzaldo, and you guys. You're doing a fantastic job.
David Sirwa stops by the commentary booth. Another podium added to the collection. It is the 22nd top 5 that he's had. I don't have the podium numbers off the top of my head, but always someone that you want to keep an eye on because he is in the mix. That's a look at the layout of Fuji that they normally run, with the chicanes, much tighter braking zone, and potentially a passing opportunity. We instead ran that faster variant of the track where a couple of drivers found themselves getting a little bit unstuck by the precarious nature of Fuji. It is definitely not an easy track to master, and the very first time that we brought this Lotus 79 to a track that it never got to compete at in the real world, I think we definitely proved just how suited to the task that it truly is. Don't forget that the next time we are in action is for the Next Level Racing Iowa 150. It is a week from today, with the coverage beginning at 10 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Pacific. I unfortunately don't know if I'm going to be here. I hope I will, but I'll be on the other side of the world, so figure my internet connection out and hopefully can be dialed in at 3 or 4 in the morning for that one. But it's going to be a lot of fun. DJ Clark should be back, and well, after 2 hours of being straddled with my voice, at least maybe you can get someone else into the commentary booth to make your voices and ears, excuse me, just be a little bit more relieved. So on that run up though to the halfway mark of the championship, I will be back on August the 3rd at Phoenix, because boy, do I love that place. Turns 1 and 2, so different from turns 3 and 4. You've got the dog leg to contend with, and then the halfway mark. A week off. We return at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and what a roller coaster of a back half of a season that we're going to have. So much fun for us still left to have. That is it, though. It is time for us to bid you farewell. Before we do so, don't forget that to learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, or about the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts on, head to lionheartracingseries.com to learn more. And as always, social media, your place to go to be up to date with the latest comings and goings in the Lionheart paddock. A week away from the next race in our triple header, but don't forget, this coming Monday, the Butt Kicker Sports Car Championship presented by BMW Performance Driving School is ready to make its way on over to Elkhart Lake for the Butt Kicker Grand Prix, to the Styrian Mountains for the BMW Performance Center Grand Prix of the Red Bull Ring. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they all play out there. But for now, it is time to bid you farewell. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, it's Arjuna Kankipati bidding you farewell for now. We'll see you next time as we rumble around the world with the Lotus 79s, but Sean Campbell on top in the HyperX Grand Prix of Fuji.